Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another episode of Wake Up with YPN. I'm Kayla Fisher, your chair, and I hope you had a great weekend. And we're going to kick off the week with a great informational video about the exclusive buyer agreements. We're excited to have Matt Blake, the General Counsel with IAR, here with us this morning. Good morning, Matt. But before we get into all of the content, I want to make sure that as you watch this video, if you have any questions, please put them down below in the comments, because ICAR will be giving away some flex tickets to the Iowa Heartlanders hockey games that you can use anytime during the season. So to be entered in this giveaway, be sure to pay attention during this live and ask any questions that you might have down in the comments of this video, and we'll get to them either as we go or at the end. So Iowa Heartlanders hockey tickets. You sure want to tune in? Thank you, Matt. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you being here. I know we've got a hot topic today with the exclusive buyer agreement. But before that, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history and how you landed where you are now at IAR?
Yes, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for being here. I guess in a nutshell, my history is I'm originally from South Dakota, came to Iowa for law school. I went to Drake Law School, graduated Drake Law School in 2015. So I'm nearing in 10 years out. I initially started my career lobbying up at the Iowa Capitol, where I represented nonprofit agency service providers. Grew tired of lobbying, decided to switch into a path where I still have a foot in the legislative field, which I can do through IAR, drafting of legislation, things like that. But then moved over to the general counsel position for the Iowa Association of REALTORs. Some other hats I wear is I'm a JAG officer in the Iowa Army National Guard, where I hold the rank of major. Actually, I drill in Iowa City at your armory, and then where I hold the rank of major, and then I'm a former city council member of the city of Urbandale. All my hats.
Awesome. Well, I love that. Lots of hats. And thank you for putting on your legal counsel hat today, because I know we've got a big topic when it comes to this new form that some people may or may not have seen. It's the exclusive buyer agreement. So will you tell us about what this form is and what purpose it serves?
Yes. So this form, in a nutshell, all of y'all are very used to having, on the seller side, having a listing agreement. It's a contractual relationship that you have to form with the seller before you can market a house. That's required by state law and the NAR Code of Ethics. So what this form is just very simply the buyer side of it. So the reason why this form was released and why this is such a common conversation that's going across the state, and myself coming to do trainings across the state, is because we do have legislation that is moving forward in the state of Iowa. And this legislation, if passed, and it looks on track to be passed pretty easily, is that by July 1st, usage of this form will be a mandatory component of the practice of real estate in the state of Iowa. So in order for somebody to make an offer on the property, they will have to have some sort of buyer agreement in place and a contractual relationship in place before that can move forward. So the use of this form is highly recommended at this time, but it will be mandatory come July 1st. And so we think this is an incredibly, and I say we from IAR, even NAR's perspective, we think this is an incredibly important tool for you all to define your value proposition as a buyer, to help explain that, to help create contractual protections. And we can chat about some of that stuff later. And then also, it's just an important way to elevate the profession, because you're creating contractual relationships both on the buyer and the seller side.
Exactly. And can you give an example of when someone would want to use this, or when they would regret not having a form like this that we have now?
Well, that's a good question. So after July 1st, it'll be mandatory. So you'd really regret it, because you would be violating the Iowa law. But I've actually, through my trainings, have been advising that with this particular form, you should be getting it signed as soon as possible. You should be getting it signed before you even start showing houses. And the reason being is that there are a lot of protections that are in place in this form. And you should be, because it's something like the protection clause. So all the homes that you show, for example, you spend 3 months with somebody and you show them 20, 30, 40 homes during that time frame. If you don't have a contract like this in place, you could potentially lose out on all that work and all that energy you do. But if you have this contract in form and you follow the protection clause procedure, which would if the contract terminates and you hand over a written list of all the homes that you viewed, if there was a certain time frame, you would protect your ability to receive compensation for seeing those. So while the law is going to say you need this before you make an offer, we recommend, and I recommend you do this before you even start showing homes. Again, there's always this thought, like, what if it doesn't work out, or I don't want to. You can build into your practice that this lasts for a week, this lasts for 2 weeks, and then you could do an amendment or you resign one or something of that nature to then extend it out further as during the trial run. But you really should get this signed as soon as possible.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I think it's important to understand, what the law is versus what best practice that you're suggesting might be for it. When I was looking through it in Section 8, I noticed the section about property type desired. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So there's 2 components to that part. There is the property desired and geographic location, and then it ties into the exclusivity, and I'll cover both of these a little bit. So property desired, and the whole point of Section 8 too is just to get a general idea of what kind of property is wanted. If there is a clause in there saying that you can deviate from it, so it does, like, if you don't get them a specific home that's in that location, it isn't a breach of contract. But when it comes to property desired, it could be something as simple as residential condo, or you could just leave it blank, or it could be 4-bedroom property. But the more important part of that section in Section 8 is the geographic region. So the geographic region it could be a specific city, like Iowa City, or it could be the Iowa City Metro, which, if you look at that, Iowa City probably includes Cedar Rapids, and it could be a very big, broad geographic region. And why that's important is because it ties into the exclusivity portion of this contract. In the exclusivity portion of this contract, the point of the exclusive buyer or the exclusive buyer agreement is that you are supposed to get it signed, and your buyer will only work with you. So we did want to put some confines to that. So there is a geographic location that it attaches to it. So if you sign one saying Iowa City and only Iowa City, the exclusivity portion of that would only last for Iowa City. But if you put Iowa City Metro, that's a much broader definition and a much broader scope. So we recommend, with usage of this, is that you put the broader scope of the property desired, because that helps with the scope of the exclusivity. And we want a geographic region because if somebody was moving to the state of Iowa, one happened to be in Council Bluff, one wanted to be in Davenport, and they were looking in compete places there, we wanted to be able to have them have realtors in both sides of the state. So that's why there's a geographic location with it.
Yeah, I think those 2 distinctions are important, and they're fill in the blank, right? So you can make it be as specific or broad as you and your buyer would like.
Yep.
And then moving on to compensation, can you talk a little bit about the broker's compensation component of the agreement and how that might work?
Yeah, so this is probably what most people are curious about. So at least in the agreement that we've drafted, the way that compensation will be work is that in the first line, there's this big empty line, and that you can put whatever your fee would be. It could be percentage of commission, it could be, or of the home value, it could be a flat rate, whatever you want to put in there. We are not here to tell you what you should put into that line. But the way that the compensation system is built, at least in the form that IAR drafted, is that it creates a prioritization of where compensation comes from. So the way that it's written is that you would need to see compensation from the seller's agent, or cooperative compensation through the MLS. And you have to use, and it doesn't say it in there, but you have, from a court perspective, a lawyer perspective, you have to use reasonable means to obtain your fee from those sources. And when I say reasonable, is because that's what a court would use when trying to determine whether a fee comes out. So you would have to try to get from those sources first before you would ultimately then go down to what the next line is in that, which is the buyer. The buyer is technically in this contract, in most buyer agreements across the country, they would be on the hook for that fee if they can't get compensation through that. And that's where, and to be frank, that's where most people's heads explode, is the idea of where is this money going to come from? And we're working on that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have every answer, because we're still working through some of these processes. But that's why there's a prioritization of seeking compensation through those three sources I named first. And then you have to work. And, there might be ways to build in the mortgage. There might be ways to seek compensation in other ways. But ultimately, it could be out of pocket of the buyer. So that is something that we're going to have to work through over the coming months to figure out how that process works. But that is something that could occur.
Yeah, and I think it started some really good conversations about being transparent about compensation on both sides. And so thank you for touching on that. I know that is a hot topic for a lot of people that we want to be able to understand, but also clearly explain things to our clients as they come up in conversation. So thank you for the touch points on that. Now that this form has been approved and it's available on Form Simplicity, can brokerages and local boards modify this form at all? What is okay to do?
So at this time, and there might have been things I've put out in the past say that you could, but IAR's board of directors have voted very recently that they want to look at trying to keep this form whole. So at this time, we are asking all brokerages to maintain the form as it is, and we are asking that they keep it Form Simplicity at this moment. There's still more to come on that, but again, there was a lot of work and a lot of energy that wanted to be put into it. So we asked that the form be used. Again, you can always draft your own forms, but when it comes to IAR's form, we want to keep that as our own.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much for that clarification. So if it's not already obvious, can you talk a little bit about the reasoning why we were working towards this legislation and why this mandate is so important?
Yeah, that's good. Beyond the fact that NAR said that we should do this, which is a joke, it's something I've kind of been hinting at throughout this process, is that there obviously was a large litigation that occurred in Missouri that has sent ripple effects throughout the real estate profession and the market and the industry. So we are trying to make massive changes to the system at this point in time to try to adapt to that. But there are things that we have to do. And one of those big things and results of this is trying to make sure that there is a clear understanding of how compensation and how contracts are clearly defined within the transaction process. Transparency is important, so both sides, and to be frank, there will probably be some changes to the listing agreement as well that reflect this, maybe making sure that offers or compensation are clearly defined on the listing side, and making sure that there's opt-outs on that side, because it's important that ultimately that this is a negotiable process, that commissions are negotiable. And we need to build tools and processes in place to make sure that this ultimate goal of making sure that the consumer understands that there is a market, that there is negotiable rates throughout the transaction process requires some additional tools. And one of those is a contract on the buyer side. And frankly, as I've kind of hinted before, this is Matt Blake, personal opinion here, is I think it's slightly overdue. I think, if you look at other professions, if you look at a lawyer, for example, I would not take on a new client unless I had a contract clearly defining my compensation and clearly defining what my duties and expectations of my client are. So those are things that when you're trying to elevate the profession and elevate the real estate agents throughout the state, trying to help move that to a common place, I think is very important. I think it will only be a positive moving forward.
I agree, and I think you're right on all accounts. And I know that this is a very brief video for a very big topic. And you have a class coming up on March 6th, hosted by IAR. And so I just wanted to mention that if you have enjoyed this video so far, Matt will be giving a full-length class in the afternoon of that day, in or around Iowa City. So be sure to sign up so we can get you get enough seats, because I'm sure it'll be a full one. I wonder if we have any questions. Oh, yes, we do. Do you know if any conversation has been started regarding changing mortgage laws to allow buyers to include commission or fees into their loan?
That's a good one. So in Iowa law currently, and actually in Iowa rules, it's in 193E in the administrative code, administrative rules. There is actually a prohibition in that current section that relates to that a buyer's agents and listing agents cannot put their commission into and any commission into a purchase agreement. So that is something that we have, as IAR, have gone to the Real Estate Commission and have had conversations with them related to trying to remove that barrier to allow us to have this. Because we have started conversations with mortgage lenders and bankers, and again, they were preliminary, but we're working through that process. They understand that some of their processes might have to change with this, so it will take some time. But what we are looking at from the perspective of the Iowa Association of Realtors and from this is to remove the barriers on our end to make sure that when we get to have more in-depth conversation with the bankers, we can say we've cleaned up our end of the bargain, our end of the administrative and code and regulations to make sure that their side can move and adapt as well. So it will take time. And I know this is the thing that I love about Realtors is that you all want things done real quick because that's what you guys do. You guys do that for a living. You want to make sure things are done quickly and make sure that you have, outcomes because transactions move fast. But when it comes to regulatory changes, when it comes to law changes, when it comes to all these things, that takes months, if not years. So while I wish I had all the answers and could tell you that we would be able to flip this in a heartbeat, it's going to take some time. And you have to stay open-minded to these changes as they occur and be ready to adapt as things occur.
I think that's great. And I know that you'll be able to go in depth for any more questions that people have on your class on March 6th. Do you have any other things to add? I think that's it for the live questions, which means that you did such a great job explaining everything clearly so far.
Or I just made it more muddy, and now they have to come to my training next week to get their answers answered.
I love that. Well, either way, we'd love to fill that room for you. And also, if you have questions between now and then, IAR has a really good blog post about the exclusive buyer agreement that we'll put in the comments below, starring Matt Blake. You did a great job diving into some of those sections as well for someone who wants to have a little bit more of a heads up of what's going on before the class on March 6th. Do you have anything else to add, Matt? Things that you'd like to share about this or other things going on at IAR?
No, we're just excited for this training. We are doing everything we can to make sure that our members are well acquainted with this topic as we shift the profession a little bit and we change the practices to adapt to the changing real estate climate. And so we just want to make sure you have all the tools you need to still move your business forward. And we look forward to doing these training. Again, ICAR is just one of 17 trainings we're doing across the state. So we're very excited to come out there and start training and meeting you and talking through these issues so you're prepared before July 1st.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time, not only this morning, but for all of those trainings to make sure that all of the licensees and realtors throughout the state are able to operate at their absolute best for their buyers and sellers out there. Matt, thank you for coming on this morning. And if anyone is interested in joining the class on March 6th, we will put that in the comments to this video as well. Thank you to those who tuned in this morning, and tune in tomorrow on ICAR social media, where we will give away those Heartlanders Flex tickets. Matt, have a great week. Hope you enjoy the sunshine, and see you on March 6th.
See you soon.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.